Hi there.
Hello.
It's nice to see you. It's late.
It is late, and I'm also this much into a glass of wine.
Was that filled to the brim, or is it just...
Oh, it was filled to the very, very brim.
Are you a brim filler when
No,
it comes
not
to...
usually, not usually. I am usually a barely, like, 2 fingers at the bottom of a glass. This is a bottle we opened before we left, and so I wasn't convinced that it was still going to be potable, as they say.
So you were just taking one for the team?
Well, I just poured it all out because I thought, if it's no good, I can throw it away. And if it is good, I'll just drink it. So,
And have you decided yet?
I'll make a final call at the end of the glass. This is a podcast in which 2 friends have serious conversations about silly things and silly conversations about serious things.
I'm Simon Ellis.
And I'm Lee Miller.
Welcome to Midlifing.
I noticed that we had a lovely email in the inbox. Did you see that?
I did.
And I'm using that as a segue to say, how are you?
Well, I do feel like my life has dominated this podcast in the last weeks. Probably not surprisingly, really.
I don't really think this is a thing that we should be apologetic about.
It's either going to be me or you, isn't it? How am I? We buried Gabrielle on Thursday, so it's Saturday here now, and it was a brilliant day. You know, it's interesting. It's been very, very warm for this time of year, and you can't really, unless you've been to New Zealand, maybe Australia, you can't really get a sense of the sharpness of sunlight here. There's a kind of lucidity, there's a kind of, it's so particular, and I don't really know why, except I suspect the massive hole in the ozone layer has something to do with it. But it's.
Sorry, I don't know why I find that funny. It's not clarity; it's your corneas being baked.
Yes, exactly. And it's harsh. It's harsh and beautiful. So we've had a string of days like that, and then that was how Thursday started for Gabrielle's funeral. And kind of amazing. I just don't know the words other than utterly surreal. And then it was the most out-of-body experience one could imagine, whilst also being kind of smothered in all the comings and goings, you might say, of a human body under stress, heart rate, shaking limbs, all the sort of just basic sort of adrenal type sort of physical responses. So, but then also, as if it wasn't happening to my body. It was pretty extraordinary. And then we buried her. We took her to the cemetery, which is not far from where Mum's home is. And then 4 of us physically lowered her into the grave, as opposed to that kind of electronic. And she was very clear that she didn't want any fake grass. And then there were 4 shovels there and a big heap of earth, and we proceeded to fill her grave.
When you say that you proceeded to fill her grave, it's not a performative act. You don't put a couple of shovels in the walkway and then somebody comes along with the digger. You, the 4 of you, properly committed to the interment.
Yes, by her, Dad did this, and Mum wanted the same. We did that labour with the 2 gravediggers around the corner in their high-vis vests, watching, basically must be thinking, go for it. Gives us... Yeah, it was really, that is a special, special thing to do. I mean, there was the ceremonial thing with just a little shovel, a little tiny little hoe, I guess. No, that hoe's not right. What do you call those little ones?
Trowel.
Trowel?
Mm-hmm.
So that everyone who wanted to got to. And then, so we did that sort of ceremonial. But when we started on the shovels, that particular thud of the dirt hitting the top of her casket, not a coffin, a casket.
Okay, what's the difference for you there?
Well, my understanding, I haven't DuckDuckGo'd this, but my understanding is that a casket is basically a rectangle and a coffin has that shape that a coffin is shaped with a slightly outward. It's basically got 6 sides as opposed to 4.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, right, okay. Lovely.
Is that your understanding?
I haven't thought about it because I think, well, I tend to think about it in relationship to Americans using the word casket. And then I think about these, yes, absolutely oblong shapes, but they're like, they always strike me as being like cruise liners for the dead. They're huge and they're full of satin, and then they have this like kind of huge big dome, and they're really like glossy. And so in my head, a casket is something that is kind of like, I was going to say aspirational, but I hope never to be in one. I would definitely.
So you have no aspirations to?
No, I don't have any aspirations to go into a big cruise liner. I'm not saying here that I don't have aspirations to die. I absolutely do.
Yes, the biggest difference between a casket and versus a coffin is the shape.
Right.
Caskets are one big rectangle that have 4 sides. Mm-hmm. Coffins are tapered at the feet and the head, and wide at the shoulders. Coffins have 6 sides. So yes, it's.
You were absolutely right.
Well, I mean, I want to say me. I mean, it was just because I heard someone saying that. Well, in the various preparations that went on before Thursday.
And your mum opted for a casket over a coffin.
Yes, she wanted a very plain casket,
mm-hmm.
and this was plain but beautifully built, with just rope handles. It's just the most abstract, concrete thing in the world.
I can't begin to imagine, Simon, I don't even think there are words for what the thing that's happening in your head right now and your body. Oh, sweet man.
Yeah, it's really, It's, I don't know whether you can be adequately prepared, but I was woefully prepared for the size of the hole. I don't mean the one we put her in, but I mean in my heart. It feels so different from when Dad died, and as I've said, I think that's got to do with, effectively as so many people have said this last week, that we're orphans now.
Is it that? Because I've been thinking about this, and possibly it's because I saw a picture of you and your brother, and I was struck by the age difference between you and your brother. He looks older than you.
You mean we look different?
He looks older. You look very similar, but he looks like an older version of you. And I was wondering if this sense of, I don't even know what the word is, the thing that you're just trying to find the edges of the words for, is to do with being an orphan, or is it to do with being so much closer to death yourself? Because 27 is a long way away from it. In the normal. Yeah, I mean, I know people die well before that, and 27 is a long way away from, what, you 53 now?
Yeah. Thank 53.
You. That's okay. For reminding you or for knowing.
Tutti due.
I just wondered if it was your.
I love that in Italian. Tutti e due. You can say if there's 5, you say tutti e cinque. All in 5. All in 2. In this case, just means both. We have an international audience. FLs and ULs.
We do. I was just looking at the list of people who've been listening to us around the world this morning and laughing to myself, thinking, what is that person doing listening to these two fucking idiots?
There's a friend of mine said today, oh, it's so great, doesn't it? It is a little bonkers. And I didn't know what she was talking about, frankly. I was offended.
I am appalled. Bonkers.
Totally. If you're listening out there, don't listen anymore. You're not welcome.
Want you to know, whoever you are who said bonkers to Simon, right now I am clutching my pearls in horror. I put pearls on specially so I could clutch them.
Well, if you didn't imagine Lee to be a pearl clutcher, he is indeed someone who clutches pearls.
Never has something sounded more euphemistic than that. Okay, so my question was a serious question, which was the surrealness, the experience that you're in the middle of right now. I wondered if it was not just that you're an orphan, but also because you are that much closer to.
Close. Yeah, I think I'm just. By the way, I'm just watching a little fantail bathe itself in a little bird bath outside my window, and it is, let's say, shaking its tail feather. It's spectacular. Oh my goodness! It's quite a rainy day, so it's it's coming in, doing this little shake, and then back off to the tree, back to the bath. I think that's right. I think that's right. It's a kind of an exposure or a vulnerability that is hard to prepare for, but at the same time, it's also just a really simple part, which is. Which we touched on last week, which is, she bathed me, she fed me, she taught me to, and it's very hard to imagine this world, this planet, without her on it. It doesn't make any sense. It's beyond sense. It's so destabilizing. It is very much like when I'm walking, the ground is moving beneath me. It's unbelievably destabilizing.
And you've spent such a long time away from home. I wonder, does that turn up this experience? I wonder, is there...
Well, my life and home are in the UK.
Yeah, because that's another thing of destabilization. With
Boris. Say it again.
I was you really threw me then, because I thought you were going to say Lil. I was like, who the fuck is Boris? Oh, right, yeah. The fucking giant haystack who lives at the Oh, don't.
Haystack. Yes, no, ULs and FLs. I am not in a relationship with Boris Johnson.
You're the only one who
my
isn't.
Life. That's right. We've had 4 children together.
Yeah, so your life is in a different
my life,
hemisphere.
and exactly. And for sure, I want to be home, but I also. Lee, it's quintessential ambivalence in the sense that when I leave, I worry that it will close the door on her even more strongly, and I don't want.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, eh?
No.
So it's another kind of, the sort of degrees of door banging.
Mm-hmm.
And so here it feels like the door, I'm sorry about the metaphor, but it's still open, I'm here, she's just next door and that's her room. And I'm here by myself this weekend actually, which is really lovely just to I was going to say wallow. It's not quite right, actually. I'm not wallowing at all, really. Soak. Thank you.
That's okay. It's close to wallow, isn't it? But it's not quite. It doesn't have the emotional sort of tenor to it. You're soaking in it.
Well, wallowing also feels it's sort of close to pity, like self-pity.
Yeah, I tend to...
Do you think...
I know what you mean. I was hearing, when you said wallow, I was thinking like a hippo.
Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking that, I think we can be so hard on ourselves.
I don't want to wish it away is what I'm saying.
Yeah. But we can be so hard on ourselves with the kind of language that we offer, like wallowing is somehow bad. I was struck by the kindness of the message from Mandy that was sent to our info@midlifing.net inbox.
Nicely done.
Thanks. I was trying to be subtle.
We're big on advertising in this podcast.
So big, yeah. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Sign up to Squarespace.
Go to our Patreon account, which we don't.
And you can find a mattress there as well, probably.
But what I thought was really lovely in the email that Mandy sent was that she reminded you to be kind to yourself, and then she said, "Always be kind to yourself." Like
you're not just now.
This shouldn't be a moment where you're just kind to yourself, and it reminded me, as you know, my mum and her spreadsheet.
Oh, Gabrielle's joined it.
Gabrielle's joined the spreadsheet, and she has because my mum knows, but. Another person has joined the spreadsheet as well recently, a woman who lives around the corner from my mum and dad. And she's been poorly for a very long time, 5 or 6 years. So this has been a very long illness. And my mum and dad went round to see her widower. And they went round as soon as they heard. And they popped their head around the door and said, "We'll be back in a couple of weeks because you'll have lots of people pestering you now, but they'll forget in a couple of weeks. We'll be back with soup then." And it feels like that thing that Mandy was talking about is a bit like Irene and Norman's soup in a couple of weeks. And the reason I'm thinking about it is because of you saying wallowing. It's just the idea that we're supposed to fast forward to the point where we're better. We're done now. Congratulations. The ceremony's happened, and now we move on with our life.
Yeah, there's a certain part of me that thinks that when I've packed my bags and left here, that this period of my life stops, will have stopped, and it must. I can't stay here, and nor do I want to. Yeah, I mean, Mum was she was every time I was crying with her, she was, partly because her Christian faith was, very, very strong. So she just kept saying, "I will be with you." She didn't mean that as some kind of memory. She understood that as a thing, not a strange piece of magic. And I don't think she was saying that just to comfort me either, although I suspect she damn well wanted to. Strange, isn't it?
Well, she didn't stop being your mum just because she was poorly.
Well, that was bloody evident right up to the end. It was actually I actually wrote in the eulogy that I was filled with awe by that. Actually, yeah, wow. Talk about if you could ever be cynical about love, boy, you're getting rapped on the head with it. I don't mean in any. It's just not right to say it like that. But yeah, it's just brilliantly in front of your eyes. Perfectly in front of your eyes.
I was thinking about cynicism on the drive home today.
Yeah.
I was thinking that I feel that as I get older, I get less and less capable of holding cynicism in my body.
Oh, that's so interesting.
I can only seem to negotiate through the landscape of things that feel full of truth, and I sort of don't recognise my response to things.
Oh,
it's quite weird.
And do you think that's just? Well, yeah. How? Why is that?
I think it's just getting
What's
older.
changed?
I think it's getting older, and I was thinking. So I've been working this week on a
But what about getting? Oh, sorry, go on. Yeah, go on.
No, go ahead and ask the question. I was going to talk nonsense.
What is it about getting older that makes that possible, though?
Oh, I have no idea. I just think it's an artifact of getting older. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. I just was thinking about it. I've been directing a play this week. That's what I've been doing. Something I don't do often, but every now and then I do. So
Is it King Lear?
No, it's a new play by a new playwright, and I was directing it because that's one of the things that I do occasionally. And it's just a table read. It's a very new piece of work by a very new playwright. And we were talking at some point. It's set in Manchester, so it's got a very Mancunian edge and tone. And somebody then said, one of the cast members said, like Liam Gallagher, and I was like, oh no, that's not right. And that then took us into this conversation about trying to hold on to something cynical and angry and bitter in older age, and it just not really working. So it doesn't look good on you. That sense of that swagger, that kind of bad boy thing
of youth.
It's a very youthful thing, and when you try to hold on to it past
Gotcha.
youth, it just looks it looks forced and a little bit.
Yeah.
It led to a conversation about the idea of cynicism being a young person's game. That actually, when you try to be cynical, when you have more miles on the clock, it just looks. It doesn't look cynical and cool. It doesn't look.
It becomes bitter.
Yeah, and I was,
Oh.
and as I was,
and you don't want to be bitter. Is that what?
no, well, it wasn't so much that I didn't want to be bitter. It was more that having this conversation with people who were less than half my age. I just found it really interesting to be thinking about this idea that actually I don't think I carry cynicism in quite the same way. That I, as a badge of honour of because I'm none of this matters, because everything feels like it matters. Did you want to spend your love? Did you want to be profligate with yours? It was a serious question that got derailed by silliness.
Well, it's that's you're trying to live up to the
Try to live up to our tagline.
To our tagline, exactly. I think the short answer is yes. That it's too short. It's way too short to be splitting hairs, I should say, on stuff that really doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. I could spend my days, scrapping and digging my fingers or hanging on to a particular perspective, but really for what? So I wonder. Even as a challenge, you might say. Yeah. One of the things that happened, we have a very old friend whose name is Lisl Prendergast. She used to babysit us. A very dear friend of Gabrielle's, my mother's, for a long, long time. But maybe 13, 14 years younger. So they must have met when Lisl was early 20s, Mum mid-30s, mid to late 30s. And Lisl speaks te reo Māori. And she's also a singer, and she performed this Patere as we carried Mum's casket into the cemetery. And the Patere is, and it'll be in the show notes, but she describes it as a challenge. And I love this. I love the use of the word challenge. Like, what challenges are there for this body entering the cemetery, about to be, as we say, laid to rest? Anyway, the sound of her voice singing this Patere is just spine-tingling. I mean, it's wow. I don't know how I got there, except the word challenge just hooked me.
I suppose we laid down a challenge to ourselves over a year ago now, didn't we? And I think in lots of ways, Simon, this time with you has been a process of becoming more profligate with my love.
Oh, Lee Miller, that is a beautiful thing to say.
Well, it feels that this has gone from something that was. It grew out of a work responsibility, which we still have and I'm still shit at, to...
Not all the time.
Oh, no, I've actually been quite good this week.
You have indeed. You've carried it.
Just
to be
this
clear.
week. Just this week, though. Let's not make a habit of it. But then it became like a challenge, but not. I don't think the kind of challenge that you've just been talking about, but a challenge to see if we could find ourselves in the conversation, and then over time, it's become a joy. A true joy to step into this space every week, and I can't tell you, Simon, how honoured I am to have been in these conversations with you, particularly over the last month, which I know have been at turns ridiculous and hilarious. I'm thinking about licking maple syrup off your cables.
Off my what?
I'm not. You heard me.
You said cables, didn't you?
I said cables. Yeah. To just
Yeah, and brutal.
Yeah, heartbreakingly open and honest, and it's just been a real honour and a real joy. Not that a real joy. So thank you.
I would love to say it's been a pleasure, but it's
God, no.
I mean, these conversations have been, but
Not the last month.
I do feel like I've been run over. I mean, it's just extraordinary. Not physically, I'm in body's in reasonable shape and all that sort of stuff. Not physically painful, but yes, that's amazing. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I haven't really paid so much attention to listening to them like the way you do always because of editing. But I wonder what kind of diary they become. A sort of strange sort of archive or I don't know. I don't know if that's the right word either. But yeah.
Again, I think there is a profligacy of love in the sharing of these conversations with people beyond ourselves, both the people that we know, but also, those people who are in Russia that I just find delightful, that somebody that I have never met in a part of the world that I have never been to each week sits down and listens to this nonsense. And I can't think of it as anything other than a total act of love, and it humbles me. Much like you being able to.
I mean, I feel so far away right now, I have to say. I mean, it's been strange to keep doing this, but I feel so far away from our usual lives. It's something about the time of year, of course, and of course what's been going on. But yeah, it's really. I love what you've just said. I love hearing that. And so, what you're saying there about kind of openness, and also love, I think that to be in the world like that. Like, to me, if we talk about aspirations as opposed to being, buried in a coffin versus a casket, I think I would love to find ways to become more and more like that as I get older.
Ka taiti, ka ruati, ka haere mai te puti tore, ka rona, no hote kiwi, hei wai taki no pa, ka rua mai, kai ana te whetu, kai ana te marama, ko te ti o reri rongara, hekeheke te manu ki tonu tauranga, ti hei mauri ora.